Welcome to Landscaping Podcast. My name is Joel Barnett and I am your host. And in today's episode, I'm talking with Adam G from Anston Architectural Products. So Adam is a salesman at Anston, but prior to that, he's a qualified landscaper as well. So he started out as a landscaper, got qualified, and then started his own business before realizing that he didn't think he was that good at landscaping. So moved into sales. It's a pretty cool story about how he's gone from one to the other and then back into the landscaping related fields by working for Anston. And he also, in this, he talks about trends within the paving industry. So about what people are using, the colors and the sizes, and how there's benefits of one size over the other. And Anston is sponsoring us for the garden show. So I asked him about why he does those type of things. So he's doing a couple, they've done just about every garden show, sponsoring some landscapers, and they've also done the block a few times as well. So I asked him why and the benefits about that. And also I think I mentioned a couple of times in this chat about the benefits of heading out to the factory at Anston, because I went there purely just to see them doing the stuff that they're providing us for the garden show. And that was the first time I'd been there, and it was just fascinating seeing how it all gets made. And I had no idea how it all gets made and how labour intensive it is. And that's when I first met Adam as well. So I just was talking to him then and thought he seems like an awesome guy to have on the podcast. So that's when I decided to ask him. So it's a pretty good chat with him, but also I can't recommend highly enough people to, like designers especially, to head out to Anston to see how it's all made locally in Melbourne using Victorian products. So hopefully you enjoy this chat with Adam G. So Adam, thank you very much for joining us on the Landscaping Podcast. My first question for you is, how did you start in the industry?
Thanks for having me, Joel. My pleasure to be here. I finished year 12, I paddled through high school. I finished year 12 basically because I was kicking the footy with my mates at lunchtime. And I knew from the early months of year 12 I was going to do a landscaping apprenticeship due to a connection at the footy club I was playing at the time. And he always looked brown and tanned and looked like a pretty good job to be outside. So I thought I would become a landscape gardener as well. And I think year 12, back in those days, you finished in like late November. And then in the December, I started with the garden company, Dave Kerr, Ben Kerr, Johnny Briggs. And I did my apprenticeship with them for the next 3.5 years, whatever, and stayed there for a bit longer after that, but that's how I began.
And they do some pretty high-end stuff as well, don't they?
Yeah, mate, back in the day, all the eco, Rick and Ross Eckersley, we built the showrooms that everyone probably knows in Swan Street, Richmond, and he's no longer there. But the garden company were based in the same office because Ben and Dave Kerr and John Briggs had a part in the eco setup. So we did a heap of Rick Eckersley designs when I was an apprentice, like a heap of them. So, and projects that were there for like, you'd go on. I remember one out at Templestowe, we might have been there for 8 months, just massive jobs. And we did a fair bit of eco Eckersley design, 23 years ago.
Yeah, it's not a bad place to start. So did you have any interest in doing it because it was landscaping, or just because you knew a guy at the footy club and thought, I'll give that a try?
It's a good question. Bit of both. Like school wasn't for me, and I knew that my grades weren't going to get me anything too well in terms of university or TAFE placements. So an apprenticeship was what I was looking to do, and I liked the idea of being outside and I suppose walking away from a landscape going, I was a part of that. It probably was the two main reasons. The guys at the footy clubs were always talking about it. I was always interested. And then the idea that you could walk away from a project feeling like you were a part of something that looks pretty good. But they were the main reasons.
And how many people worked there when you were there?
At the garden company, well, there's still Huey Moulton, who basically builds all the pools. He's still there. He's the best tradesman of all time. Simon O'Donnell, who now owns the garden company outright, he started as I was kind of finishing up. So there's still 2 guys there. I reckon when I first started, mate, there was probably 3 crews of 3 to 4 each, plus I'd say 12 people. And I know they're at about 20 at the minute.
Yeah, right. And then what ended up finishing up there? Like, how did that all come about?
like all 21-year-olds, 22-year-olds, mate, I thought I could go out and do this on my own and be an absolute rock star at it. So I did about 4.5 years with Dave Kerr and Briggsy, and I handed my resignation in and said, I'm going out on my own. I'm going to go do this. This is easy. And my wheels spun for the next 4 years, just, mixing landscaping, concreting, whatever I can get my hands on. I was subcontracted to a concreter for a while, which was great because I learned a lot. Probably didn't earn any money doing it for the next 4 years. And by the age of 25, I realised that I just am no good at this and I don't know what I'm doing. So my personality probably lent towards being more in a sales, relationship type role. So I ventured off to get off the tools, and I haven't regretted it one bit, to be honest.
Now, what was the business called that you started?
Might have been like G Landscapes and Paving, very average. Very average, just small little paving and turfing jobs, whatever I could get my hands on. And I wasn't very good at it. And I just ended up not enjoying it. So I didn't mind the winter, funnily enough, through Melbourne, but as a bald bloke that burns easy, the summers were just too hot. And I just couldn't get out of the sun quick enough. So I was happy to move on when I was 25, off the tools as such. There's certainly no projects in the G Landscapes archives that are worth anything in terms of no picturesque moments. That's right. For sure.
Yeah. So had you learned much about business from the garden company, or was it just mainly?
No, just an arrogant little 21-year-old mate who thought he knew everything.
Yeah.
And out I went, and I did not go any good at all. So quickly learnt that running my own business is not for me.
Yep. Yeah, you're not alone in doing that. A lot of people go out on their own and then realise, it's not actually. I'm not a millionaire all of a sudden, so I might go to someone else.
Yeah, it was way harder. Just like the all the tax and the BAS and the pay as you go and everything like that just tripped me up. And you're going to get get $4,000 for this project, but you got to keep X amount aside for this, and this. And I was just like, I was 21. I was 22. Biggest concern was having $300 in my kick for Saturday night, like I just, just went no good with it at all. So happy to move on.
Yeah. So where'd you move on to?
Well, at 25, I became like an account manager for a disposable packaging company. Basically, I applied for every job that I could under the sun in the landscaping industry or something related to the landscaping industry in the sales area, and got zero bite back because I had no, sales experience. And then I basically took the first job that gave it, offered it to me, which was this small family packaging business in Notting Hill here in Melbourne. And I took it. So I was on the road, just, selling disposable packaging. Basically, the next time you go to the baker or a cafe or get something from the caterer, whatever ends up in the bin, all the paper and plastic disposable packaging, that's what we sold. So I stayed there for 10 years, and that's, not because I loved it, but because, I went from 25 to 35 in that time, 2 kids, a couple of houses, married, and all of a sudden you've got to be, I'm way more accountable for a few things now, so it's a bit scary to leave. So I stayed there for 10 years and really honed my craft in terms of being able to deal with, customers, relationships, being at the coalface. When things go wrong, how do you handle, angry, unsettled customers? Very rarely do you get a phone call saying, thanks, the pavers have turned up, they look great, it's awesome, you've done a great job. Usually every time the phone, if there's an issue, there's someone ringing to say, where are the pavers, what happened? So I've really honed my ability to try and adapt and be upfront and honest with the customer as they were trying to chew my ear off or demanding, that we replace the packaging, and which back in the packaging days was fine because, if it's a lid off a coffee cup that's not fitting correctly, to give them 100 new ones of them, it's like $1.10. That's fine. Whereas now with the Anston pavers go out and they're not what was required to swap them over, it's a 10 grand or something like that. So I've really had to, really appreciate those early days in the packaging game to, just, I suppose, you've just got to be upfront and honest and throw yourself under the bus a bit.
Yeah, it's good. Like you said, learning what you did about, rolling with the punches when people call up with a complaint is good, because a lot of the test of like a good business or a good supplier or something is when something goes wrong, how they handle it. Because it's all good and well, everything's going well, everyone's all nice and friendly and everything's happy. But when something goes wrong, if they, just start pointing fingers at everyone else, that can leave a bit of a sour taste. So you kind of got to take ownership sometimes.
Yep, for sure. Get on the front foot, and not every single issue is as bad as it may sound on the phone initially as well. When you get out there, you can sort through whatever the issue might be. And sometimes, it's okay, so we got to replace the pavers here because, it's not working out. That's fine. I'll take full responsibility. We'll get it made ASAP and I'll get them dropped off. But also, there's other issues. There's things with, in sales, lead times and like availability of pebble for certain mixes and things like that. When I first started at Anston 5 odd years ago, lead times were 4 weeks. Nowadays, they're out to about 12. So when someone rings up and says, I want to get some paving for my pool, we want it all done and made and looking beautiful for a Christmas party, and this is October, and I say, well, you're not going to get the pavers until January. You've got to learn, that what's coming back on the other end of the phone is like, you are kidding me. I've got to get the pool finished. I'm like, well, you've got to learn how to, manage expectations and navigate your way through those phone calls.
Yeah, and it's also important not telling them what they want to hear, because then you just make it worse, because they're going to find out you don't deliver. Yeah,
you've just got to be open and honest from the get-go that we are 12 weeks and we'll do our very, very best, but we are 12 weeks at the minute.
Yeah. So how did you go about getting the job at Anston?
Oh, mate, I applied. This might sound old school, but I applied on seek.com, and I hope Brucey watches this actually, because he called me up and he said, let's go for a coffee in at the old Anston Architectural showroom in Abbotsford, which is no longer there. I went in, I met Miles, who was the showroom manager at the time, and Bruce Grogan, who was the original owner of Anston, with his partner Ken. And then he's now my boss, head of sales here. And I met Bruce. We went and had a coffee and we kicked it off. It was no problem at all. Really enjoyed it. Knew that we'd get along, which we do. And then, I'd say a week later, we had another coffee at a coffee shop in Ferntree Gully, and he offered me the role. And he reckons I stood up and hugged him once he offered me the role, which does sound like something I do. I don't quite remember doing it. I gave him a hug and accepted the role, and I'm still here today, and he's still my boss. Yeah, things are going pretty well.
Because you're happy to be back in the landscaping industry, probably.
Exactly, because I wanted to get back to home. I was just excited for the change to come back, to be honest. Obviously, the disposable packaging certainly isn't a huge passion of mine or an interest, but it was paying the bills at the time. So to come back and get back into the industry, it was pretty exciting for me.
And so how was that then? Did you start, because did you have many relationships with people other than those at the garden company from when you were landscaping, or you were too young?
The garden company, I knew Adam at Iconic Gardens. I knew a couple of guys, I don't know if you know them, Gem Boom Landscaping, based out in the Berwick area of Melbourne, who do some nice stuff as well. So I knew a few people, but certainly just starting fresh. And that was probably probably one of the things that Bruce liked about me. I was just going to be fearless with who I approached with Anston, whether or not I'd had poor dealings with Anston previously, whether they'd never heard of us before, whether that they use us all the time. I was just going to go in there and say, I'm the new guy. Hi, how you going? Let's start fresh, or let's continue on, or let's build on a great relationship. And I was and that's what I did. I just went in as fearless as I could be. Some doors get shut in your face, and that's fine. I mean, that's part of the role. And other doors, you can kind of get your foot back in and you can kind of jimmy it open, and other doors are, great to meet you. And we kicked off from there. So it was a whole range of things, but and it's all going pretty well at the minute, that's for sure.
I reckon it would help having a landscaping experience when you're talking to people, because you know what you're talking about as well. So it's not something that you learn on the job, but
Yeah.
what it's like.
I know how hard it is to be a landscaper. I don't ever underestimate it. You guys, what you do out on site's tough. Very hard when you're digging out footpaths in the hand and it's by hand shovel and it's clay ground. It's like, I mean, you're kidding yourself if you think if it's good fun. It's not. It's terrible. So I know how hard it is, and I know laying Anston pavers that are big and heavy are hard as well. So I can appreciate what the guys and girls in the field are going through doing.
So with the products that Anston sell, like that, is everything made in Melbourne that you make?
Yeah, correct. Everything's made here out at a factory in Baronia. There's 10 guys on the factory floor out there at Baronia, casting the pavers or the spheres or the bollards, whatever it might be, and everything is made to order. So as we secure the order, and then once the customer pays, or if it's an account customer, once the customer pays a 30% deposit, it'll flash up out on the screens there where Luke, the production manager, it'll come to his screen and then it'll go in line into production.
And I see, like it used to just be Anston, and now there's SVC. So what's the difference between the two names?
Well, SVC have been around since 1948. Big precast concrete company based here in Melbourne as well, down in Mordialloc. More into the civil side of precast, so the non-sexy stuff, pits and lintels and all that stuff that gets buried under the ground. They were looking to expand their urban range. They had a range of concrete pavers back in the day by the name of Gaddastone pavers. And there was like a change in like direction of SVC. They wanted to get bigger and more of the urban side. So like, like the seating, the planter boxes, the bollards and everything like that. And the pavers fell under that type of umbrella. So I think Bruce and the CEO here at SVC, Shane, caught up one day and Shane cottoned on that he wanted to sell his business, and May of 2017, SVC became the parent company of Anston. So nothing's really changed in terms of Anston. It's still the same branch manager. It's still the same mixed design. There's a new company overseeing it all, but Anston still runs as Anston did, 10 years ago.
Yep. And do you know what the main reason is between why it's so popular now, like where the lead time has gone from 4 weeks to 12 weeks? Like, is a lot of marketing, or what's the reason behind it?
I'd like to tell everyone it's my amazing sales technique, but I'd imagine, mate, sadly, COVID would have a fair bit to do with it. Anston, he's probably more in the higher end residential game, and where people were forced to stay at home, much like you got the landscaping business, his industry as a whole is just flat out. Is because if they're going to look out their window at home because they can't go to Queensland, WA, Bali, Europe, whatever it might be for their family holiday, we're going to make outside that window look pretty neat. So, pools and landscaping is gone, probably through the roof, and we've just tagged along for the ride. I also think the fact that it's all locally made here in Melbourne, locally sourced from quarries here in Victoria, I think that also has resonated with a lot of customers as well, and a lot of specifiers in particular. So, the big landscape architecture firms, the landscape designers, they all like the idea that it is made here. It is all cast upside down into a steel mould using a shovel to hand fill each and every mould. That's how we do it. So people love that, and we push it as much as we possibly can. So COVID and the fact that we're homegrown would be the two biggest reasons.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to come out and visit the factory there, and seeing the way they get made was absolutely fascinating. Like, you literally got guys walking around like shoveling into the molds, which is on a vibrating table, so it gets all the air bubbles out.
Yeah,
and the way the spheres will get made into the steel mold as well. Yeah, it's fascinating for like any designers who are thinking of specifying it to go out and have a look at. So did you?
I always encourage designers, architects, whoever, homeowners, come out and have a look. But it's hard to tell an architect who's in Collingwood to come out to Baronia, because I don't know where Baronia is, and then it's a 45-minute drive down the eastern. But once they get there, everyone appreciates it. Everyone takes so much more away from it than like, wow, that's amazing, you know. And like it's worth the effort to come out and check it out. I'm happy to have you there whenever you like. We can get it. I mean, obviously during the times when the boys are casting, that's the best time to be there because you're going to actually see the empty molds, filled molds, stripped molds, blasted. You're going to see it all. So yeah, encourage as many people as I can to come out to Baronia and check it out.
Have you ever done any like events where you get a group of people out or anything like that?
We tried one in October last year, mate, October 27, and we had 3 groups through landscape architects, and they had a great time. You know, we plan to do at least 2 more this year. It's just about lining up. You know, everyone's schedules are so busy. October 27 last year was the date, and the weather was like 9 degrees and sideways rain. It was just poor. So we definitely try to get it. I'm definitely trying to get more done this year, and I just hopefully you know, we can get as many as we can out there as well. But also the smaller groups work well because you can get around the factory a bit easier. Now within the factory, there's only certain places I can take a big group, so it worked really well the one in October, and we're happy with it. Certainly happy with the feedback anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things like I've probably heard people. I reckon I probably have seen people post photos. I reckon I might have seen Georgia Harper one day post a photo of being there, but it's not something you would appreciate until you actually go and see it for yourself.
Yeah,
you can't see much from a photo.
No, and everyone loved. Yeah, like it's not a massive factory; it's an old factory, but it's perfect for casting concrete pavers in. You know, it's a really dusty environment. So people come out there and, yeah, you actually see the blood, sweat and tears of the pavers going and coming together and stacked and wrapped and waiting in the racks to be delivered to site. People take a lot out of it.
Yeah. And with your marketing, do you target landscape designers and architects more so than landscape builders?
Certainly target the specifiers, mate. I mean, you've mentioned to me you only lay what's been specified. So there's no point really in...
Yep.
You know, I need to target the landscape architects and designers and the architects of the house build too. If we have a good relationship, clear and communication, we know our product stacks up. So that's who I target.
Yeah. And what sort of range of different pavers do you have in terms of sizes? Or can you do much custom stuff, or because you've got to make molds is a bit harder?
We do heaps of custom. And you can do it. We just got to get the mold made. So if the budget's there in the project to allow for a custom size, then that's fine. We can get it made. There's also a lead time on the getting that mold made because it's then got to get to Baronia where the boys will cast it. You know, so we do small 100 by 100 mil cobbles up to 2 meters by 600 wide landing. Front landing steps into the house and everything really in between. I suppose that the landscape, the specifiers love long and thin at the minute. They want a 1200 by 300 or 1200 by 250. I mean, from my end, very problematic because there's going to be a braking load on that paver that's going to be poor. So if you want that, it's just got to be thicker, which then doesn't suit the guys on site trying to install them. I get that. So, we offer all the sizes through the 200s up through to the meter by meters, and then the sizes beyond that, I suppose it's a bit more narrowed down just because we're offering products that we know will survive and nothing too big and too thin, that's for sure.
Yeah. And do you have recommended laying techniques for the pavers?
We've discussed this, and you use 4 brick sand, 1 cement.
Yep.
Everyone does it. I mean, when we go out on site and there's an issue and the landscaper says to me, I've been paving for 30 years, I've never had this problem. I'm always like, wow, this is going to be a problem. We recommend if the landscaper has full confidence in his methodology, then go for it. You can do it. But we recommend that, you glue the pavers down to a concrete substrate. Cam Frieden at Peninsula Stonemasons, who's obviously a freak, they have a methodology that isn't gluing. It's like a dry mix, slurry of cement on top, glue the back of the paver, and like a slurry beneath the dry mix onto the concrete substrate or the crushed rock substrate, whatever it might be. It really does stick like I've never seen before. So I'm only really guided by those guys who have installed our pavers. They know the best techniques. Nick Carroll, who no longer is in the landscaping industry, he really helped me with installation methodologies, but he believes, gluing them down, certainly need expansion joints every, 3 square meters at worst case, because concrete product expands in the heat, settles back down in the winter months. That's the same with our pavers. You just got to get perfect bond to the substrate below, and then usually it's fine. We sell millions of dollars of pavers a year. It's not like every order's going out and coming back. So in between, there's a lot of successful projects. So people know what they're doing, and if they're confident doing it, then I support that.
Yeah. And do you have anything coming up in terms of the colours that you offer? Like, do you ever look at changing or adding to the range?
We've just got through a small disaster in our pebble range, Joel, where the 7mm white pebble that goes in it, quarries told us we can no longer supply that. So we're basically trying to keep the colours we've got alive. We have since been able, only like last week, been able to source another 7mm white pebble. Now, I suppose in terms of like, Boral and Hanson, we are small fry in the concreting game. So you can imagine what they must be like. We're all in the same boat. So, the 7mm white pebble is hard to get at the minute. So we're just trying to keep the colours we've got together, and there's no plans at the minute to like expand the range or anything. But we do offer custom colours and custom sizes. But we're just trying to stick to the 25 colours that we've got, plus plain grey and off white, which are popular as well. So we offer 27 colours. I mean, we just can't be everything to everyone, can we? So.
And that's all oxides, is it?
Yeah, mate. Yeah, correct.
And just by weight, it all gets. Is it computer added or just manually added?
It's all weighted.
Yeah.
So up at the mixers there at Baronia where they're cast, there's a few colours that are in production pretty much every day. The more popular colours, Vega and Atlas in our granite range. All of the oxides and the granite that goes into the mix is weighted on scales and then dumped into the mixer and mixed from there out into a forklift, which then sits on a vibrating table where the boys cast the pavers from.
Yeah. And do you see like trends of certain sizes that come in waves being popular and then something else comes through?
Yeah, for sure. My large format pavers used to be so popular, metre by metres and 800 by 800s. They're massive pavers. They're heavy, metre by metre. Basically, 4 guys on each corner to pick it up, or a machine safely.
Yeah.
So they were really popular. Then like long and thin became very popular with architects and landscape architects. So metre by 200s, metre by 100, all that. They're just too, we just can't offer it. The braking loads on them are terrible. So we want the product to last, the test of time, and with a movement issue, So we had a lot of that, and then we've tried to offer some long and thin, but only in sizes that we're comfortable with. Steve Taylor specifies, circle steppers a lot. So now we're doing heaps of circle steppers, not just through Steve, but people have seen Cos Design, and now they're circle steppers. I mean, there'd be a circle stepper project confirmed pretty much every day. And so they're used for the blind side of the house or through the garden. They look really mint, and there's plenty of sizes to choose from. But at the minute, I'd have to say the mold getting used the most is a standard rectangle size, 600 by 300 by 46 mil. That's probably at this very 2023. That is the most popular size with Anston at the minute.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I've seen. Yeah, Steve used those steppers at his place. I reckon that they're quite chunky as well. Steppers as steps.
Yeah, so those type of projects that those 800 chunky ones are quite popular, absolutely. But they're so heavy, the machine or extremely strong males and females have to move them in.
Yeah, he would have done that by himself, I imagine.
No doubt.
And speaking of Steve again, like we worked with him on the block and we were using your pavers on that. So do you do much stuff like that, like the block and the garden show and that sort of thing?
Over the years, I think Anston's been on probably 10 series of the block. The garden show most years. And the reason why I do it is not because once the garden is built and the show's open and there's people walking through looking at InStyle's garden, I don't do it because we're hoping to get them as our new customer. I do it to support you. We do it to support InStyle and grow our relationship. I think I told you before, we're also on with Mint Design in their garden this year, but we do that because Darren asked. Absolutely, we'll support you for sure. So, the whole landscape industry supports each other, and we're no different to that. We're doing it to support you guys, and knowing in good faith, you guys will support us down the track. So that's the reason why we do it. The block for the same reasons. We don't really get any work out of people who watch the block. There's no one ringing up saying I saw the block last night. It's just we do it to support InStyle and Steve Taylor on the block and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Is there anything like do you have like goals that you work towards for the business other than trying to get more sales? Like have you got 5-year goals or long-term goals that you work towards?
I'm very much head down, bum up, focused on it all. SVC is a big company, so the more you sell, they'll just raise the budget on me next year. So we currently have fantastic sales, and I suppose I'm really looking forward to the next 6 months, really, in terms of just consolidating what will be the financial year from this year, and we start again, next year. Plans for 5 years. It's getting to the point where we're going to have to expand a bit more interstate, I'd imagine, within 5 years. Obviously, Sydney, big market for Anston. There's arguments that there could be someone in Adelaide, and then the Sydney person could go up because Canberra, that we sell a fair bit into Canberra lately. So there is arguments that we need to grow our footprint in the country. So I'd imagine if all things going well, that would be the next step, is that we have a bigger footprint in New South Wales would be my tip, because I currently look after New South Wales, and throwing the fact that Melbourne hasn't been able to move anywhere and you haven't been able to get on planes. I mean, last year you could obviously, but it's a lot to cover. So I would imagine the next 5 years would have another male or female on the ground in Sydney.
Yeah. So like doing sales?
Yeah, selling the product, still making it all down here in Melbourne, but then just on the back of a truck once it's ready to go and sent up to site. Yeah.
Have they ever thought of getting another machine to make to double the production?
That's the easy part, Joel, is getting another machine. Most expensive, the easy part. I mean, Anston's no different to every landscape contractor out there with just the staff, mate. Yeah, just the staffing issues. SVC, Anston's no different. SVC, screaming out for staff to work in the factories to cast the concrete units. They're simply just not available at the minute. Luckily for us, I reckon the last 3 to 4 months, the staff at Baronia it's kind of settled down, and the guys it's a consistent guys every day, which is great. But I reckon over the COVID period, last 18 months, we probably lost 40 years of experience in the factory with guys moving on. So it's hard to replace that. So I love the idea of running Baronia for longer, but we need guys in there that can run the factory for longer, which just isn't available at the minute.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? I just done an ad for an apprentice only a few days ago, but I've had 2 applicants in 5 days. So,
yeah.
And one of them just wants to be a construction manager. So that's nothing to do with landscaping.
Yeah. Yeah. And every landscaper I talk to screaming out for new staff, or not new staff, a new team member, and they're just simply not available. So we're exactly the same with the factory. We just we need staff and just can't get it.
Yeah. And last question for you, Adam, is who do you think would be a good guest to have on the podcast?
Have you had Rob Waddell?
No, I keep asking him and he keeps putting me off. Well, I should have mentioned it yesterday when I ran into him.
Have you had Meg Geary?
Yep. Meg was a good one.
Yeah, she's a star. Have you had Cam Frieden from Peninsula Stonemasons?
No.
I can pass you on his details.
All right. That'd be a good one. I haven't had a stonemason on.
Well, mate, yeah. He's coming out of Bronya. I've met him. Great, interesting guy. Great, really, really good. I think he'd be a great guest.
Yeah, awesome. All right, we'll do that. But thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and the story about Anston. And again, I encourage anyone to head out there because it's such a cool place to see how they get made. So thanks very much.
Thanks, Joel. Thanks, mate.